a ball hosted by the Vicomte de Lou punched a fellow guest in the jaw. The blow in question would not land until later in the evening, but I mention it now in case you, like me, find balls in general rather dull, unless something unexpected is happening and might therefore put the book down in disgust, were it not for the reassurance that in a few short pages you will be able to watch an irritating man get smacked in the teeth by a slightly less irritating man, whose teeth-smacking skills, if we are honest between ourselves, leave a great deal to be desired. I begin my tale in earnest, then, clinging in the shape of a woodlouse to the ceiling of a carriage whose occupants, in descending order of age, were Mr. Cesar, his friend Miss Bickle, and his two sisters, Miss Cesar and Miss Anne. We are starting early, partly to build tension ahead of the much-anticipated teeth-punching, and partly because I am given to understand that you mortals find it more enjoyable to watch other people's misfortunes if you learn a little about them first. And on the subject of learning a little about people, there is some context surrounding the Cesars which will, over the course of the narrative, prove pertinent. Their mother, Lady Mary, had been born the youngest daughter of the Earl of Elmsley, but had defied the conventions of the ton by marrying a freedman of Senegalese birth, whom she had met through her work with the abolition. And whereas in the enlightened 21st century the marriage of a British aristocrat to a person of colour is a wholly unremarkable thing that results in no hostility whatsoever, in the bad old days of the 1800s it caused quite a scandal. Isn't it wonderful to know how far your species has come? At any rate, those are the inhabitants of the carriage, and this, as best I recall it, was their conversation. I was wondering, Miss Bickle, a fair-haired, doe-eyed creature who stubbornly remained an ingenue despite being some way into her 19th year, was asking the group at large, if after the ball is over, or if the ball becomes wearisome, any of you would be interested in reading my Kshun? What's a Kshun? Asked Miss Cesar, who, at 16 years of age, was now formally out in society and thus learning the fine art of pretending to care about things other people cared about. Of all her siblings, she was the one who most favoured her father, her eyes and her complexion, both a deep brown that almost glowed in the waning sunlight. Mr. Cesar, immaculately presented and patrician as ever, gave his sister a warning look. Please don't encourage her, Mary. Kshun, Miss Bickle explained, ignoring her friend's admonition, is an abbreviation of avraction. Unable to quite help himself, Mr. Cesar disregarded his own advice and offered the obvious question. And what is avraction? Ah! Miss Bickle's face lit up. Well, you see, that is itself an abbreviation of avid reader fiction. I am an avid reader of the works of the anonymous lady author of Sense and Sensibility, and I, along with some lady friends, have formed what we call an avid readerdom devoted to the wider anonymous lady authorverse. Miss Anne gave a thrilled gasp and tossed her fashionable ringlets. Though she was by far the youngest in the carriage, her grasp of the mortal art of flattery was greater than any of her companions. How fascinating. I'm not sure I understand, admitted Miss Cesar. What do you actually do in this avid readerdom? Miss Bickle reminded her. We meet and we discuss the works of the anonymous lady author. Mr. Cesar, growing increasingly aware that he was the only gentleman in the carriage and beginning to wonder if this was hampering his ability to follow the conversation, continued to look sceptical. These works you insist upon calling the anonymous lady authorverse? Yes. Miss Bickle had a fine line in confident nods, and she deployed one of them now. You don't think that's a rather silly name? Never having considered anything silly in her entire life, and being, I suspect, one of the few mortals who appreciated the etymology of the word, Miss Bickle was unperturbed by the criticism. Not at all, I think it rather splendid. The Misses Cesar, to their brother's chagrin, both agreed that it was splendid indeed. Although, added Miss Cesar, I'm not entirely certain how this group of yours differs from a literary salon. Ah, well, Miss Bickle explained, we do not only read and discuss the works, we also write our own stories set within the wider anonymous lady authorverse. Miss Anne clapped her dainty hands. Oh, how marvellous! Is it, in fact, marvellous? Asked Mr. Cesar. Is it not, in fact, a slightly peculiar thing to do? Before Miss Bickle could either deny or embrace the peculiarity of her chosen hobby, Miss Cesar was leaning forward with fatally sincere interest and asking, But what...